Every day. Folks, we back. Listen, this is episode 70.
Ooh.
70 episodes in.
Listen. Yo, we just started this a year ago.
Mm.
And we had to stop for a little bit. Because of the COVID. So listen, we bubbling. And then this is taking off. So we appreciate everybody. Keep tuning in. Buckle up. Because this one tonight, bananas.
We got a lot of things planned for the summer.
Yeah, the summer's going to be crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Insane.
And it includes y'all.
All day, every day. Word.
Shout out to the troop, man.
Right. Keep tuning in. Tell a friend to tell a friend.
And they have been.
Absolutely.
We got to talk about the giveaways. We're getting ready to do giveaways.
Yes.
Stop Box has been generous enough to hook us up. And we're going to send out the rules or whatever for the giveaways, but we're working on that.
We'll give you the rules of engagement momentarily.
I like it.
Sir. But first and foremost, Starbucks USA. Don't forget the code, all caps, Silverback Podcast, all caps, Silverback Podcast. Get you 20% off your purchase. From here, your boys in blue. We appreciate you. Second one, don't ever forget about Bond House. You want Fells Point? You know what I'm saying? Been a long day. You ain't getting nothing to eat? Go to Bond House. The boys will take care of you. Phenomenal dinners. Their menu is insane. And it's grown up, strictly for the grown-ups.
And now they got that outdoor. They built this real nice outdoor seating, eating area. It's beautiful, bro. From the farm to Fells, that's it.
That's it. They got a nice quito for you outside in the cold,
Just in case.
But shout out to everybody in the world. We love you. We appreciate you. Everybody tuning in. Please keep telling a friend. This is where it is. This podcast is moving. And we're doing numbers, and we appreciate you. Don't forget the website, www.silverbackchronicles.com. Get the latest merch, and keep working hard. Keep grinding. Keep God first. And with no further ado, listen, the one we got tonight.
Y'all know every 10 episodes, when we sit down on that 70, that 60, that 50, it's a benchmark.
Groundbreaking.
Yeah.
What better way to start the 70s off than the guest that we have tonight? Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, we have people that come in, professional and another level. But it don't get no better than what we got tonight. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Judge John Hargrove Jr. Sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
Thanks for being here.
My pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you very much for the invite, and I look forward to having an interesting conversation.
First of all, I have to say I'm feeling that royal purple shirt right there.
Amazing.
I appreciate it.
I like that.
I had on a multicolored, very colorful shirt on the way out, but my wife stopped me.
She wasn't having it.
She said, "Nah."
She said, whoa.
She said, "That's not the shirt for
Right. Where the fuck did you think we was going with that?
But I like my colorful shirts, so I went down to my Ravens colors.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Are you a Ravens fan?
Oh yeah, I'm a Ravens season ticket holder. Yes,
Oh,
there we go.
Yeah.
Damn.
I missed last season. I'm glad I didn't go. There's no way I would have gone.
Right.
But
you get back in the stands this year?
Oh yeah, and they selling tickets again this year.
Where
going
you
back.
sit? Like on what side?
I sit in the.
How do you like it?
Right.
I love it.
You can actually see the game.
I'm a football. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, M&T, you can see the game from anywhere.
Well, I just got to make sure though.
And I got a couple of buddies that have like some coin, and they have the boxes.
Oh, excuse me.
So
Okay.
I never went to my buddy's box to let you, and my daughter set it up. So
Nice.
that just
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
yeah, but that's an interesting experience.
What I'm saying, do you like the end zones? Like, do you
I
like
am.
the end
I'm
zone
in-
seats, or you like the behind the bench?
Well, it has nothing to do really with what I like. What I have for the last 20 years is
That's a good point.
in the corner of the end zone. Raven side, up in the corner end zone, right off of one of the big screens and just under the overhang. So if the weather's inclement, I stay dry.
Nice.
So we got a nice setup.
Yeah, we got, and my mother, who's 91, and I have shared these season tickets for 20 years. She doesn't go now, but
God bless.
God bless.
God bless her.
she's still a fan.
Nice.
And,
Absolutely.
but yeah, so we've been there. So yeah, I'm a big fan. Had a lot to do with my father. He was a big sports fan. So I grew up going to the Baltimore Colts, and the Baltimore Orioles, and the Baltimore Bullets.
Wow.
No, no. So yeah, I'm a sports oriented person.
Johnny Unitas days, huh?
Absolutely. Used to bowl at his bowling alley. Y'all not old enough to remember the
No, I wasn't thought about it.
Yeah, I was, yeah.
Right.
It's the Fairlanes or whatever in Woodlawn now, Security Boulevard, right across from Social Security. It was the Johnny Unitas Colts Lane. I met Johnny Unitas out there. I was
didn't
around
know
went
that.
to school sometime.
Wow.
Got his autograph. Yeah, but that was a long. Y'all folks weren't around.
I wasn't thought about it.
No, y'all.
Right.
None of y'all would thought of it.
No.
at that time.
I'm sure it was a good year, though.
It was, and I will tell you an interesting story. The Black Colts, we lived in an area right off of Gwynns Falls Parkway on Longwood Street, and there was a park there in the football field, and the Black Colts would practice there in the off season. So I'm about 5 years old, and we're still living there. And one day, my father took my brother and I across the street, and it was Big Daddy Lipscomb, Buddy Young, Lenny Moore, Jim Parker. I think I got the four. And they threw the football with us, me and my brother. And this is something I remember today that happened, but it was just one of the neatest things I think that's ever happened in my life. But the Black Colts were really involved with the community back then. You would see
Who were the Black Colts?
Lenny Moore, Buddy Young, Jim Parker, Big Daddy Lipscomb.
They were big in the community.
Big in the community. So Lenny Moore is still around in the community. Jim Parker had a liquor store forever and a day on Liberty Heights and Garrison.
Wow.
And he never got robbed, or more than once, I think. So, Liberty Heights and Garrison. He had that liquor store on the corner of Liberty Heights and Garrison for maybe when he was a Colt, and certainly for years. I mean, you could go in there, he'd be behind the package counter.
Wow.
Yeah, so they Big Daddy, of course, didn't have a good outcome. I think he OD'd or something back in the day. But you know, Jim Parker's around. John Mackey, of course, one of the great tight ends, who unfortunately toward the end of his career, I think it was dementia he suffered from, and it was really unfortunate. One of the Ravens game, they were honoring the old Colts, and Jim Park was there. He was on the crutch. Johnny Unitas was there. They're all getting old. And John Mackey was there wearing a cowboy hat, and it was pretty widely known that he was having issues. They announced his name. He picked up a football, and he ran from our end zone in a dead sprint to the other end zone.
Wow.
And I know everybody in the stand I was around, but his mouths were open, and then people just started cheering. And you know, the dude was having problems.
Right.
Wow.
They stood up and cheered him, and he ran in his cowboy hat all the way up the field. So yeah, there was quite a presence with the old Colts. For those of us old enough to.
And back in the day, a lot of those guys they weren't making the money they was making now. So like Geno subs and stuff like that. Like y'all know, like it may have been certain parts of New York where guys, you know, that was their off season. So they spent a lot of time in the community and stuff. They had
Jim
stores.
Parker's liquor store. That was exactly it. Yeah. Willie Richardson was a black receiver. He had a liquor store up at Park Heights and Belvedere for a while. Wasn't nearly as successful as Jim Parker's, but it was there for a while. Had his name on it.
How was Baltimore City back then? Like the neighborhood?
Segregated.
Really?
Well, you know, we were talking about this a little. My experience growing up, I did not grow up in the heat of the city. I was, you know, blessed. That's the only way I can say it. I was blessed because you can't pick your parents. But I was born to two particularly wonderful people who did a lot of stuff with their lives. My father was a lawyer and a judge. My mother was an educator. So I grew up in this really nice middle-class existence. Even the house across the street, it was in a nice area. And, you know, at this park right across the street. And we could, you know, do that kind of stuff. So growing up, I grew up in a community called Ashburton in Baltimore. It's still there, and I guess my mom ended up owning the house for 40 some odd years. But we were a middle class African American community. Our family doctor lived across the street from us. Our next door neighbor was a major in the service. We had a police detective lived across the street this way. So everybody in it, our father was a judge. My mother was a school teacher. And that was the neighborhood. So where I grew up, we had a park. Everybody had a bike. You know, we could roam the neighborhood. But, you know, you travel 15, 20 minutes in another direction, and it was just something else going on. So, you know, I came from two large families. My father's one of 12 kids, and my mother's one of 6. And not everybody in the family was as successful, or however you want to, you know, talk about that. So, I mean, I had family lived all over the place. Appleton Street, Pulaski Street, you know, all over West Baltimore. So we're all over there all the time too. So you see stuff, and you know that something's going on here that ain't going on up here. So, but Baltimore was very segregated back then. Donald Pomelo was the police commissioner. Do y'all know about?
I have no idea.
He was. I don't want. It's not so much that bad man, but he was just not as bad as Bolcon or anything like that. But okay, here's a story. I was on the safety patrol in elementary.
My man,
Hey, that's what I'm talking.
Absolutely.
Shout out to the safety
Right.
patrol. We were trying to get Dre to
I had my
understand.
orange badge too.
Thank you.
Slow
I
up.
was a captain.
See,
I was a
now,
captain.
we
I was a
had
captain.
white canvas
the white
belts
ones.
and just regular, but I was the cap. I was lieutenant my 5th grade year, and my 6th grade year I was the captain. So I was the main guy. So we had to go to this little. It was a little program of school in the summer. It was the 3 days, and I'll never forget this because I know they thought it was crazy. At one point, they told us that the safety patrol could get these things like parking tickets. And if, you know, cars were parked in the walkway we were trying to cross through, we could put these little nonsensical parking tickets. So, being the captain of the police force, I wrote a letter to Commissioner Donald Pomelo. And one day, we in class in the 6th grade, and the lady comes in the office and say, we got this letter for John Hargrove. And it was addressed to Captain John Hargrove.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, snap. Police commissioner. And open the letter. And basically, the gist of the letter was, whatever they told you, we ain't got that for you. But I like your spirit, son. Go lock them up. You know,
It was good just to hear that.
Hold it down. Hold it
The
down.
point was, that was my first contact. Then you grow up, let's go to, 60. Do y'all remember the Veenie Brothers? Anybody remember them?
No.
See, y'all young folks. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm, you know, how did I
That's
get
okay.
No. That's fine. Put the hill. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. This is back before the public defenders. One Christmas Eve, over in East Baltimore, Greenmont, North Avenue, 21st, 22nd, somewhere over there.
Mm-hmm.
Some went down, and a police lieutenant was killed. Another police officer was shot. It was crazy. And 2 Veenie brothers, Earl and Sam Veenie, were ultimately arrested and convicted for this. And I studied the case in law school because the police kicked in every house within they had no warrants. That's what the case was. We studied about you need a warrant to enter people's houses.
Right.
Like that. But there was no public defender system. And my father was appointed. He was an attorney at the time, practicing attorney. And he was appointed to represent one of them. And it was real big, and it was so big they moved the trial to Frederick. Now, I don't know if you know much about Frederick. I was listening, but in 1962, that's when it was.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know if there were even any black people out in Frederick.
I was going to say that.
But
it wasn't a good thing for
they
them.
moved the. Again, I'll tell you, the way I grew up, everything was always cool for me, because it was my father, and it was never a problem. It's kind of one of the weird things. You understand stuff going on.
Right.
Edit that.
Oh yeah, you can say shit.
Stuff going on around you, but doesn't impact you. But I know one day, my mother dressed my brother and I up in our best clothes, and we drove to Frederick to watch my father defend Sam or Earl. I can't remember which one it was. And it was my remembrance was I just thought he was a nice guy, the defendant. I kept telling my mother that he looks like such a nice guy. And he actually gets convicted of killing an officer. I guess he did it. I don't know. But I'm saying the Baltimore Police Department at that time, that was under Pomelo, there was always this grind. in certain neighborhoods with the police, and certain neighborhoods they weren't. So I said that was Donald Pomerleau. So I had that experience with him actually writing me a letter, but history will probably show him as I've said often, the issues that I see between the police and the community now have existed for a very long time. And I go back, that's when I was a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back seeing that. So, but everything changed. And Baltimore was very segregated, to actually answer your question.
Okay.
You know, middle class blacks lived here. And there was maybe one or two white families that were still living in Ashburn when we first moved in. My parents bought the house. You guys, once again, I think you'll be too young. There used to be Epstein department stores.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Some
Well,
pictures.
my parents bought the house from Epstein's, the house we moved in. So the neighborhood we moved into, Ashburn, had been a Jewish neighborhood
Mm-hmm.
that then middle class black moved in, and that's what happened in the late 50s, early 60s. You know, physicians, doctors. Kurt Smoke, Mayor of Baltimore, lived in
Mhm.
Ashburn for a long time, right around the corner from where I grew up. So that became that kind of neighborhood. So that was the kind of thing I grew up with. But that doesn't mean you don't experience stuff. I got stopped by the police when I was a little boy just walking through the neighborhood, which is unusual because there wasn't a lot of police presence in our neighborhood because there wasn't a lot going on.
Right.
But there was always somebody to let you know that you were different.
Mm-hmm.
And that just kind of followed me through life. You know what I did? I went to private school. So I went to school with a lot of white kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a great education. I went to Gilman School. I'll give them a shout out because I give Gilman School credit for just about everything I've ever done in my life. That would include law school and all that. But I wasn't necessarily the greatest student. I could get good grades, but I wasn't a great student. And so Gilman helped out a lot. But you go to school in a different culture, and it's interesting.
You got exposed.
Yeah, well, it's two things. It's a double-edged sword. I've already told people I grew up and I was educated like white folks educated who are running the world. Because classmate of mine was CEO of Legg Mason a few years ago. So, you know, that's the folks, you know, I went to school with folks that money came on the Mayflower, as we used to say. Old money. You ain't seen money till you seen old money. Old money.
Now you're talking.
Old money is the best money. And then not too many black folks got old money.
Right.
But I went to school with a lot of kids with old money. I went to school with kids that grandfather went to Gilman School. You know, where I'm there when the first blacks graduated. Stu Sims, Greg Emery,
Mm-hmm.
Dave Robinson, and Willard Riggins. Year and a half ago, Gilman had a big ceremony, 50th anniversary. Had a great big banquet. It was a wonderful.
Wow,
occasion.
Mr. Simmons went down.
All the 50 years of black graduates
Wow.
in school.
Wow.
It was a huge thing. It was wonderful. So I'd say so you get acclimated a certain way, and then you're the one. Let's just say something goes down, or you know, in the '60s and stuff, there was a lot of civil unrest. So I got to go to school and got to explain it. Like, you know, I'm the authority. Why black people acting like that? You know, I don't know, man. I'm as curious as you are.
Right, I'm trying to find out.
But that's how that affects you.
Right.
That's how that affects you. And then you got to come home to your community, and everybody think you sold out because you're in a coat and tie and you getting home after dark. Because that's how private school works. Okay,
Right.
you're there all day long, and with athletics and stuff. But I got back after dark, 6 o'clock.
So you caught it from everybody.
But the thing that benefits me is, I saw everything. So I had to learn to deal in two communities. Most of the white kids I went to school with, they don't have to deal in the black community. They just don't. I got to deal in every community. So most black people have to deal in every community. So that was the difference. And then I went to an even whiter college, Washington and Lee University. You may have heard of it. It's all embroiled in a lot of hoopla now about Robert E. Lee is the Washington and Lee.
Mm-hmm.
And the faculty has recently voted to recommend removing Lee. And there's student groups that want to keep it. There's student groups that want to get rid of it. And
How do you feel about that?
Okay. I got to back that up to say there was a part of an organization called SABU, Student Association Black Unity, while I was there. Life was difficult for black students at Washington and Lee University back when I was there in the early 70s and the mid 70s. SABU was a wonderful organization. I'm still very close friends with most of the guys in it. We routinely get together. but there was a somewhat antagonistic relationship between the school and the administration and the black students for a lot of different reasons. For example, the college Republican Club is one of the largest in the country at the time, and they had a editorial in their newsletter once that said black ain't beautiful, and the thesis of the editorial was they were pissed off at the arrogance, etc., that the black students showed to them. Now I admit the brothers did go visit the dude at 2 a.m. because of some stuff he said. I admit that. but the tone of the article, that was the relationship. And the relationship was better with faculty members than with the students, because the students, tell you another story, I got a lot of stories, cut me off if you get tired of my stories. When I first got there, I told you I came out of Gilman School. White, and all that, whole bunch of guys going to W now from Gilman School. So I joined the white fraternity when I first got there, all these guys. And that,
what's the name of the frat?
Huh?
What was the name of the frat?
Beta Theta Pi.
Nice.
I mean, I still remember this song. Anyway, I don't want to talk about
That's
that.
what's up.
But the point was
You was on your nerd shit back.
That's where I was. When I got out of Gilman School, I was like, hey, these boys like me. This is blast. I played a lot of sports. You know, I was popular. You go to the parties and you have a good time, and everybody, you know, everybody was pretty cool. Everybody's pretty cool, but you just don't know. There's 2 stories I gotta tell you. There's while at Gilman School, there's the Morgan and Millard was a soda fountain pharmacy down the street. It's a restaurant now, but it's still in there. We would go down there all the time with our white classmates and eat. Never have a problem. One time, there's a brother in my class. He and I went down there to get lunch. We sat at the counter for 45 minutes. No one came up to us, and the worst thing was all the waitresses were elderly black women, and they ignored us for 45 minutes, and we got up and left. And that's the only time we ever went in that place, so we weren't in there with our white kids. So, yeah, you can go to school with white kids and all that, but you keep getting told you black. Something happened. So, segue, we in college now, and I'm happy-go-lucky. I'm in the white fraternity, and I'm having a good time. And it came up from time our pledge that the upperclassmen, and I don't mean to incite or indict white guys, but they do a lot of drinking and get drunk in college. If you ever saw the movie Animal House, that's what Washington and the University looked like. Seriously, in the fraternities.
That's every fucking college.
So, well, but particularly Washington and Lee, deep in the South, and it's embedded with all kinds of stuff. Washington's George Washington. Lee was Robbie Lee. Lee and his whole family buried on campus, still are in Lee Chapel. The whole school's a National Historic Landmark, and when all that goes with that.
What state is it in?
Virginia. It's in Lexington, Virginia. Okay. So, it becomes the upperclassmen were getting drunk every weekend, busting up the furniture in the house, busting out the windows. And as pledges, all we did the next week was put windows back in, fix furniture, and we were getting tired of that. So a bunch of us in a car, and we're from Baltimore, and they from private school in Baltimore. And so we're driving around, and basically everybody's airing their differences with this guy. And at one point, I'm sitting in the back, and the dude driving the car said, you know, they acting just like them niggas in downtown Baltimore. And then some, just like that, was silent. And then if I had this one time, if I had a nickel for every time I heard this, they turned around and said, oh, Johnny, we sorry, you know, we don't think about you like that. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that going to school like this. We don't think about you like that. But what the hell do you think about? I mean, I never asked them that, but my 8th grade year, Gilman, sitting on a weekend, a guy in my class who I considered a friend, we played sports together, grew up, I hate niggas on the back of his army jacket, man, on campus. It's like mid-60s, late 60s, and, you know, I've never forgot it. I never said anything to him. You know, you get conflicted about stuff. So that's how W know in Washington Lee. Go to the library, I hate niggas written all over the wall. It was a crazy place to be a black student at the time we were down there. So we had Sabu, and we wore jean jackets with a Sabu patch on the back. And pretty much everybody was scared of us. Or that was how it was perceived.
So it's safe to say, when you got on Sabu, you was no longer a frat member of...
Oh, no, that ended my freshman year. As a matter of fact, that started segueing. Over the course of my freshman year, I'm going to tell you a good story. And I'm going to throw a shout out to a brother named Bob Ford.
Okay.
He's a brother that was 2 years ahead of me at Washington Lee University and helped me keep my sanity. The summer before I went to Washington Lee University, they have this Facebook, and the doorbell rang and the door knocked at my house, and I opened the door, and this brother's standing there. My name is Robert Ford. I understand you're going to be going to Washington Lee University. Well, Ford became my guardian angel. From that point forward, that brother watched me and kept me out of trouble and kept me straight, including my entire freshman year where I was most standoffish with other black students. He kept saying, give him some space, he'll be all right. Give him some space. So that ultimately that happened. So I had somebody like Ford down there, and the group Sabu was very cohesive. It was a family. I mean, we would talk about each other's family. I mean, to this day, we just had a Zoom breakfast a week and a half ago.
So the gentleman's name was Ford.
Robert Ford.
So you met him before?
Never until he rang that doorbell and I opened the door. I never knew Ford in my life, and we still stay in touch. He's the one that's kept everybody together. He's just that kind of guy. Now, I can't tell you about the things he did at school. I wouldn't do that to him because he was, as they say, a legend in his own time.
Okay.
But Ford was a straight up brother. He kept everything straight. And that I would be betraying wildness if I got any further before. But that was our existence. That was existence. So I think your original question was, how was it? That's how it was. I was over here being the first black guy doing this, and the first one in this school, and the second one over here, and then there's this going on over here. And then to come around circle, and I come back 1976, want to be an actor, but get a job in the court system. And here we are, 2021. I'm still working in the court system. So I mean, that's how I went. I was a theater major in college. So I struck out I was going to be this famous actor. That didn't work out. So.
Who was your favorite actor?
People, John Gielgud, and people you probably wouldn't have heard. He's in. Yeah, see, I'm telling you, not.
Like,
I mean,
Sidney Poitier.
I studied. Not some. There were a lot of people I liked, but I studied theater in London one semester. For example, so the world of theater, like everything else, don't include a whole lot of black people at a lot of times. So you have your Paul Robeson, for example, who was way before Sidney Poitier. You have those people. You had your Bill Cosby. Just set all that mess aside, but you had your Bill Cosby's and the people like that. And then
Red Fox, Richard Pryor.
Danny Glover.
Red Fox was one of my parents' generation's favorite comedians. And what I didn't know is back in the day, he used to make these like underground type of tapes. They were like funky, kind of racy and stuff. So one Thanksgiving, my wife and I have my parents and her parents over for, I think it was Thanksgiving dinner. And we go out and rent a Red Fox tape because we think it'd be cool. Because our fathers, they grew up on Myrtle Avenue. My father and my father-in-law grew up on Myrtle Avenue in Southwest Baltimore. Block.
So they knew each other.
Yeah, I know my wife since we were little kids. Not like this, but knew her since we were little kids. And, no, I mean, seriously.
Right,
There was a time from I was 16 to 20, we didn't see each other.
Right.
16 to 28, we got reacquainted. But, damn, I forgot what I was talking about. Just that fast.
Red Fox.
All right. So we get this tape because we think we're doing something. Within 5 minutes after he's talking about hash marking draws and just all this filthy stuff's coming out of his mouth, is very uncomfortable. my mother, we have to turn the tape off. So that was Red Fox. So
Rated R.
So it's all those people, but I was steeped in like theater. Like, I mean, it doesn't sound right, but. I like going up to Broadway and seeing stuff.
Yeah. You was on your Romeo and Juliet shit.
Yeah, and
right.
I got a buddy that he just retired. He's a member of Actors Equity, and he was a stage manager. That was what he mainly did, and they have to be members of Actors Equity. And so it was a way of life. So I guess my little existence was a little different. I ain't major in business, political science. No, man, theater. I like HR puffing stuff. See, y'all don't know. That was on TV when I was little too. It was a little kiddie show. HR puffing, and I used to be fascinated with HR puffing stuff.
What modern day actor would be your type of actor?
Oh,
or what
man.
would be a signature of you?
A lot. Well, I don't know about me, but Denzel, Washington, he's an actor. I've seen him on Broadway. I've seen, his films.
Lawrence Fishburne?
Lawrence, although that's funny. Yes, he's a good actor, but I don't know if you know, but there is an organization of black judges, the Harry A. Cole Judicial Council. And who was getting retired? Lawrence Fishburne was doing Thurgood Marshall's show, one-man show in D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And it never worked out, but we were going to go, the group were trying to get tickets and all that. And as a part of it, Ari Davis, I don't know if you know Judge Ari Davis, I clerked for him when he was a circuit court judge. And then he went on to the Court of Special Appeals. He was retiring, and to honor him, they were trying to get Lawrence Fishburne to sign a poster of the Thurgood show. And we were going to give it to him at the thing. And one of our colleagues wrote an email to Mr. Fishburne to ask for this, and unfortunately misspelled his name.
Well, how about that?
If it was L-A-W, it was spelled L-A-U, or if it said L-A-U, it was L-A-W. And the response was simply, he spelled his name right, it was something real curt, but right back when you get this right or something.
Damn.
Yeah. So
right back when you get my name. Right.
Or no, it might not even been that. It just went back with the right name. But needless to say, it did not happen. The poster, the sign. But he's a heck of an actor, And then lately, just like anybody, he does what was the ride along movies. I mean, I don't mind brother getting paid, but that's nothing. But Boys in the Hood, for example, Furious Styles. I mean, that was a great character. The father, the one father in the life of these brothers.
Right.
In Boys in the Hood.
Especially during that time. Right.
Yeah, so those movies are dated now. I'm afraid to watch Menace to Society again. I'm afraid it would scare me. Seeing O-Dog and his
cane. Get a double burger with cheese.
Because I don't know if you saw this, because I follow a lot of social media. But recently, it was a black actor, something, he was writing for a favor from somebody, he wanted to get something, and the person sent him back the clip. Remember when O-Dog shoots the crackhead, the dude just keeps, come on to me, have it, let me, and he said, good, yeah. Right. And he shoots him, and he sent him back that basically to say, you looking for a favor? And it was all hell broke loose on this Twitter feed.
Just a lot of ignorance.
How you gonna send that? It was a white guy. Send it back. Right. Really? You gonna send me that clip back? Because I'm asking you for a favor.
Right.
I don't know, but it's life. That's one thing I've learned. Just life is funny.
What do you think, as far as like actors? What do you think about like Michael B. Jordan?
I like him. See, I've liked him since The Wire.
Right.
And Wallace in The Wire, and yeah, he's hitting it right now. That he was great in the Black Panther movie. I just like the brother and Creed. I thought he was pretty good in Creed, but it's not so much how well he does in that, but who can work. Like Daniel Kaluuya, whose name I can't say. Daniel Kaluuya. He was in Get Out.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. He was also
y'all seen Judas and the Black Messiah?
Amazing.
Oh,
yeah. He's nominated for that this year.
He better get that award.
Mm-hmm.
He might not. There's a lot of he didn't win the Golden Globe, I don't think. And what's the guy that played the informant? He was in Get Out also. He played the guy whose identity got taken in Get Out. Lakeith Stanley. Yeah. They're both nominated for Best Supporting Actor. And I'll tell you another movie, just throwing out movies, ain't the only black person is kind of consequential, but the Trial of the Chicago 7. So the thing is running on Netflix. It's a trial drama. So, it may not be for everybody, but I certainly enjoyed that stuff. But yeah, there are a lot of young ones, but the guy, Jordan Peele and that crew of people, Lupita Nyong'o. I mean, there are a lot of folks out there now. The trick is, can they work? Ryan Coogler, the director, who gets a lot of this stuff done. So Tyler Perry with his little plant in Atlanta where everybody's making their movies.
Yeah.
Apparently. There's even some brothers got a mansion he rents out from him. I can't remember his name.
Rick Ross.
Rick Ross.
Is it okay? The guy the big place
Yeah.
that is making a killing.
Wait, Rick Ross.
Yeah.
They read his mansion, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Coming to America was
Yeah.
done in his house.
Right.
Yeah, but he rents his mansion out all the time.
All the time.
Yep.
And he said it's been paid for.
Mhm.
And then, Atlanta is a big hub for just filmmaking generally.
Yeah.
So, that's the kind of stuff, now. I just like stuff to touch me emotionally somehow. I don't care if it makes me cry, makes me laugh, makes me mad, angry. Just, to me, theater and art is about touching an emotion somewhere. Evoke something. If I'm just sitting there,
Right.
okay, I mean, that's great. But if you got me on the edge of my seat, or you got me with tears rolling down my eyes just because of something I'm watching, that's what I'm talking about.
That's exactly
Or scare the hell out of me. I don't necessarily like a lot of horror movies, but if you can scare me, I'm down with that.
Speaking of that, did you watch Your Honor?
I have heard of it and I've never seen it. I've heard several people have mentioned it to me.
What's the name of it?
Your Honor.
Your
Is
Honor.
it good? What channel?
It's based on a judge
Yeah.
in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say Showtime.
Okay.
It's
my
one of the-
God.
The judge in the trial of Chicago 7 is so off the wall. I was commenting to somebody that I said he couldn't have been like that. He was so bad. But they do a disclaimer up that 78% of the attorneys in Chicago voted that he was unqualified to be a judge. And in the film, he is horrible, particularly with Bobby Seale. So in the film, there are actually 8 defendants, and Bobby Seale is, well,
Yeah,
what's it called? Alert! Alert!
Yeah.
Yeah, Bobby Seale's let out of the trial
Gotcha.
at one point, which then became
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
See, on Your
A
Honor-
mistrial was declared.
On Your Honor, he's actually a phenomenal judge.
Okay.
But like very crafty. I don't want to give it away, but
Mm-hmm.
I was just asking if you watched
Yeah,
it.
and judges get portrayed funny. Like Cousin Vinny got one of the funniest judges I've ever seen. Fred Gwynn. What did you say?
The two
So
youths.
you
The
can
two
run
youths.
again.
The two youths.
The
two
two
youths.
Well, that was Pesci.
The
but
two what?
The judge was incredulous about everything he was doing, and he's did you just say youths or something like that? And but I'm also like a big Stephen King fan. I like Lovecraft Country. Y'all see that?
Yeah.
Buddy.
Love it.
Got the
Love
magic
it.
back. Got the magic back.
Amazing.
And I'm a big Stephen King fan. So there's the series, Mr. Mercedes, that's on, just finished 3rd season on Peacock. It's about a series of books that Stephen King wrote. It's waxed up. I mean, The Outsider, about a boogeyman. I mean, the book was great.
Yeah,
The
I ain't
TV,
reading it. I'm not watching that.
yeah, and that's the kind of stuff I like. I like
Growing-
that stuff.
Growing up in Baltimore, did you ever meet you or your dad was ever close with or ever met Thurgood Marshall?
My father knew him.
And if so,
They
If
worked
you-
together on a case once.
how was that, you being younger and knowing? And was
I
Thurgood
didn't know
Marshall a
about it.
big?
This is something my father talked about. So Thurgood Marshall's a little bit older than my father, and as you know, he was very much involved in the Brown versus Board of Education cases and all that. And that's, I think, where my father had some contact with him. Now, my father was also one of the first African American graduates of the University of Maryland Law School. Him and Juanita Jackson Mitchell were classmates. And with a guy named what was Coker's last name? Oh boy, can't remember Mr. Coker's last name. But they were in the same class, 1950. Came out of University of Maryland. Back then, I'll tell you once again, it brings back to the racial thing. In the 1950s, black folks could not take a bar review course, which I'm telling
not
you
go to
now,
University of Maryland.
you do not pass the bar unless you take the bar. You just can't. It's like that.
I read about that.
SATs or something. You got to figure out the trick. And, there's a trick to doing that stuff. You got to figure that out. So my father had a Jewish classmate that would give him his books. So, I mean, this is how things had to get done back then. Him and Juanita Mitchell studied for the bar together. I remember him telling me stories about that. One of the Mitchell boys, not Clarence. What was one of the...
Yeah, I mean, Clarence Mitchell Courthouse.
Well, that's the
older
Clarence Jr. That is Clarence... I'm Michael. They had 4 sons. They were in there. So Clarence Jr. And then there's C4.
Mhm.
That's what C4. But they were all close. So that was the group of people that grew up. And they Druid Hill Avenue, the Y.
Mhm.
I mean, that's where the black community in West Baltimore was kind of based. So, yeah, my father was a judge, but he grew up in West Baltimore.
Mhm.
He grew up on Myrtle Avenue.
Right.
1200. No, one of them was in the 1200 block, one was in the 1300 block. My father and my father-in-law.
Yeah, that was the central. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you know, of course, it was a very different neighborhood back then. But so that's the thing. So yeah, I kind of grew up in another generation, but my father grew up, and my mother grew up in a very segregated time, and they were treated as such. Like I said, father couldn't even take a barbie course.
I remember when they were saying that Thurgood Marshall, because he couldn't, like, if y'all can imagine, like, you know, not having a car or anything, and because he couldn't go to University of Maryland, he wanted to go to law school so bad. He had to catch the bus to D.C.
Yeah, he went to
just to go to law school every day.
And
then as soon as he passed, his first case was suing University of Maryland for not letting him in. He was qualified for it. And that was dope.
I can't remember the.
So they would have beneficiary, you know, so his pops would have been beneficiaries of that because they were, you know, and then his pops, I heard a lot of cases and things he took on as well during that time.
When I went to I went to University of Maryland Law School also, but it was a very different school than the University of Maryland my father went to. And it's a very different school than the school that's actually there now, because they knocked the school I went to down and built this magnificent thing up. But the library, when I was there, was named after Thurgood Marshall. He refused to come to the dedication. He was not there. So, I mean, that's how I felt about the University of Maryland.
Yeah.
But he did come back and sue and got admission for two. There were two brothers admitted to University of Maryland Law School, like in either the late 1800s or the early 1900s, and then crazy stuff happened.
Okay.
And then he couldn't, and then Thurgood had to sue to get back in. But Thurgood probably, or Mr. Marshall, I'm talking about him like I knew the guy. I don't. He was a lot of with his work with the NAACP and in Baltimore about the school cases. There were school cases going on all over the place. I think Bob Watts, who became a judge on the circuit court, I think he worked a lot with Thurgood Marshall on those cases. They had a lot of lawyers working. You know, there was a guy named Ben Foreman who lived down the street from us on Longwood Street, that place where we were across the park with Black Horse Play. And he was a mentor to my father. My father's first law office, he worked in a practice with him. You know, it's on Pleasant Street downtown, actually, where the building was. But that's how you know, there wasn't no state's attorney's office. So, you know, black attorney coming out in the 50s, you hung up a shingle and you went somewhere. Then my father became first deputy U.S. attorney in Maryland. So he was able, and these other brothers had a great career. But, you know, I got out of law school. I went to a big law firm. I went to attorney general. My father couldn't have done any of that. It just simply was not available.
They paid the way.
Oh man, yeah, they paid the way. I've told people this 100 times. What he did and when he did it, to me, is nothing I could ever do. I mean, if I'm half the guy he was, I'm okay with that. But yeah, my life was easy comparatively speaking. I mean, I'm junior, you know, so everywhere I go, are you related to? I mean, even court. I used to go to court all over the state. I'd identify for something, China HARGROVE, Jr., yada yada, assistant general. The very next question out the judge's mouth was, "You related?" Yeah. And then one time on the Eastern Shore, the judge started out. I got ready. He asked me about my brother, who had been in a band that played at a wedding that this judge went to. And I don't know how you know that, but it's the one and only time in my legal career that I got asked, "Do you have a brother named Steve?" They always ask me about my father.
Right.
We're the same name. And I mean, just took me back. No, and I think he thought it was me. I said, "That's my brother." Yeah, and then I found that was a good friend of mine's sister's wedding. It was on the Eastern Shore. I wasn't there, but obviously my brother was playing in the band. So that's something, you know, thinking about this now, the old days, because I'm realizing how much younger y'all are than me. And that's part of it too. We were talking somewhere, and we were telling us, Sabu, I was telling you about 4 or 5 years ago. It was right when I retired, so it'd be 7 years ago. The school got away from Sabu, got rid of it altogether. They had some multi-diversity, some, and they finally came back and acknowledged and let Sabu come back. And that's basically when I started for 20 some years, I had nothing to do with the school. Most of us didn't, and we started coming back 10 or 15 years ago. But they had a big ball. We used to have something called the Black Ball. It was former back in college, and they had a big ball. We were honored, and they had all this, and we're standing there. And amongst other things, you have all these young white students coming up to us bleeding heart. I'm so sorry you had to go through what you had to go through. And I'm like, you know, maybe your grandfather shouldn't be saying this, but, you know, you didn't have to.
You weren't even born.
It's okay.
Right.
We're having a
Right.
good time. They got liquor at the bar. We're okay, you know. But and that's what you get. It was like, and we were saying, when did we become history? And no, you laugh, Chris.
but that's
think
honest.
about it.
Yeah.
I'm
Coming to
talking
you
about
apologizing.
stuff that happened 50 years ago, 40
Yeah.
years ago. I'm a historian now. When did that happen? I looked at
Yeah.
myself in the mirror a few years ago, and I had these short pants, and I looked like my father's legs. And I said, when the hell did I turn into my father? It
Yeah.
happens, man. You know, so I'm growing up, these guys are historians, and we talking about their story, and now people are asking me about my experiences.
Wow.
And it's mind bending to think about it like that for two reasons. Number one, you're getting old. And I'm
Getting
serious.
wiser.
You know, I just turned 67. 67,
Ooh,
yeah.
look good.
67
I tell them every time.
was the first
Look good,
one to
man.
let you know 70's right on the horizon.
Yeah.
Okay? 66 was cool. 67 brought me pause. Okay, for example. And then now you realize, I just did a thing. There's, how to explain this? Because I like to talk to you. We had a law clerk who went to an upward bound program, Dunlop Community College, got me involved with them a couple of years ago. As a result of that, the woman who runs the program reached out to me recently. Her son was doing a project for his class. I think he's a middle schooler, and they were doing it on unsung heroes, but it had to do with people that most people wouldn't know about. And she and him thought they wanted to do it about my father. So I did 2 different Zooms, and they recorded with this kid. You know, and I'm telling the story. I mean, it's cathartic for me talking about it. And I said it to him again. It's just, I said, I just never knew I'd be the historian, or, I would be the history person telling stories about this is what it used to be. And this kid's maybe, 12. So everything I'm telling, he's looking at me like, this dude old. But he tells me, he smiles, he said, I really enjoy this. And he told his mother that. She told me the other day, he said, I just like listening to old people tell stories. Now, he could have left the old people part out.
Sounds like a wise kid.
But that is what he said. And I mean, I'm not mad at him. I understand, but that's what I deal with now. Thinking, dude, you retired. And I've been retired for a while.
Yeah.
But like I said, I went when I could, and I couldn't think of a reason not to. So
I've always wondered if people like your dad, people like Thurgood Marshall, people like Dr. King would look at some of these young kids and all the things that you all have done, paved the way, done these things, even in whether in a small way or big way. Would they be happy or would they be upset? Because in my opinion, it's 50-50 some days, but I feel like some of the things that they fought for is now falling by the wayside. Or some of the things
I think
where,
you're right, to a degree,
if it were, like if something had my namesake on it and it wasn't representing what I was trying to represent 90% of my life, because everybody's flawed, but 90% of the things that are going on represents what they're doing. And then they see some of this. I'm so I wondered, the things you grew up around.
It's interesting. It's a very thought-provoking question. I think my father's generation did all they could. They're all dead now, to lead the way and set an example. But at some point, you got to pass it on. You pass it off to the next generation. So I'm just saying, it's up to the next and the next to start to do things. They, as far as the African American legal community, Larry Gibson can give you the stats. In 1977, there were only X amount of African American attorneys admitted to the bar in Maryland. And that number just went nuts after 1977, and it became many more black attorneys. So these guys are leading the way for the next group of whoever. So, but with the generations come a change in everything. So, now in COVID, everybody done turned topsy-turvy. for the last year. Social things, the economically in the country, the gap between the middle, the upper, and it's just going in the wrong direction. So people are being more affected, and politically, and I don't necessarily want to get in a political discussion, but right now it's insane. Nobody, it's us and them. It's nobody's working together. So I say that to say things are going to get bad, and there's not a whole lot of people to sit there and try to, do something about it. And the guys that did, by example, do something about it aren't here anymore. They've left their example, and it's a huge example. I'm living proof of that. All these guys that are out here, all the African American judges I served with, the Bells, that generation, we all have this group. We got Harry Cole, Bob Watts, my father, Ken Johnson, Dave Mason. Dave Mason's first black to Court of Special Appeals. He was in a law practice with my father. In the early 60s, my father was in a law practice with Joe Howard, Charlie Howard, Dave Mason, Jim Bundy, who was became a district judge, Howard and Hargrove. For 5 years, they were like 2 or 3 black law firms. My father's was one, Brown and Watts was one, and then George Russell's firm. I forget what the name of that was. But there was a time, and you don't necessarily see that too much anymore. But that's what they were doing. And, but then they all went on. Just about everybody else got appointed to the bench. So that's what happened. They leave the practice of law, and they go on the bench. So Joe Howard, my father, ultimately went on the federal bench. Joe Howard was a circuit court judge. My father was a circuit judge. My father was a district court judge and the first administrative judge of the district court. So they all did that. Dave Mason, Court of Special Appeals. So, Milton Allen. I don't know. Y'all are too young to know. He was a colorful brother. Y'all know anything about Milton Allen?
No.
He was my senior year in high school. He ran a campaign and won the state's attorney race in Baltimore City. He was actually the state's attorney in Baltimore City, African American lawyer, and he eventually went on the bench. I can't remember if he ran and went on the bench. He got appointed, but he was a firebrand. He was something else. Everybody liked Milton. He was just one of those guys. So these guys were all real smart, but they had come through a lot in a time where you just can't even imagine. Like I said, for me, like I had it easy, man. Just people, doors were opening up for me. You so and so son. So that's just my personal experience, but it wasn't like that for everybody. But then you hear things like I have a very close friend now who, in a somewhat, I won't say drunken, but we were drinking at the time, and we're having we were just speaking freely nicely. He told me about how my father had assisted him getting law school. Now, this dude right now is a partner, a named partner in one of the most successful medical malpractice firms in the city. And, he gets to law school because my father taught. He was a good friend of mine. I had a bunch of friends that I grew up with that we've all remained here. We've all remained friends. And he was one of them. So my father was close with all these guys. And a bunch of us are lawyers, too. But this one, he told me, he said, I have to tell you what your father did to get me in law school. And I go, no. And then... this is a story. Elijah Cummings, may he rest in peace. Recently, a couple of years ago, my baby sister's a minister. She gave the opening prayer in Congress for the House of Representatives, and she got to meet, among other things, we had pictures taken with Nancy Pelosi. It was great. I was over there with my daughter, and we had a great time. And they all hated Trump, and it was real clear that they did not care for Trump, and that was great.
She's from Baltimore too as well, right?
Who?
Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, Baltimore City. Her father and her brother were mayor of Baltimore at different times.
During that time,
Tommy Jr. and Tommy the Third. Absolutely, she's a Baltimore girl. And so she went, and she stuck around because she wanted to get a picture with Elijah Cummings. And both things happened, and she was able to get the picture. A few months later, my daughter, who's an attorney, went over to the Black Caucus, had something, but she ran into Elijah Cummings. And he'll talk that he's a very friendly guy, and got to talking, and she mentioned, he said, what did you say your name was again? And she said, Sidney Hargrove. He said, are you related to Judge John? We're talking about my father. And he tells her a story that when Elijah was a young attorney, just coming out of school or near to it, my father bought him a suit because he was getting ready to go in court. I never heard that story, and I'm in my 60s at the time I hear this. And Elijah Cummings tells my daughter this story, so this ain't no third.
Why?
Like the man himself told daughter that, and then wrote something in the note and made a reference to it. But you know, that's how they did. You know, here's a young logical young man. So my father is here. He can man, go get a suit, so you can live where I want you to live.
Wow.
So that, you know, that's the kind of stories you hear about these guys. It doesn't happen now. It ain't working like that. Just everybody's out for me. Well, not everybody, but
Right.
but you know, it was a time when these guys struggling. Wasn't nobody letting them make money anyway. So they just worked, you know, on the justice end of
Right.
things. You know, we can be a voice in court. We can change it there. Now everybody, you know, I want to make a little bit of money. I want to get on, you know, CNN tonight. I want somebody to see me. So I'm not saying they aren't doing things, but meanwhile, socially and everything, things are regressing. So that's the part I don't know what the legal part can do.
Mm-hmm.
I have a daughter. I got covered. I got a daughter that's a sociologist. She's a professor of sociology at UNC.
Yeah, that was my major.
All right. Well, see, I don't engage in too many conversations with her because number one, she's a lot smarter than I am. Oh, you laughing? Both my kids. They got their mother's genes. They wasn't mine. And see, but she is not the one you want to argue with.
No, 'cause she gets deep.
She gets real
She
deep,
gets deep.
and it gets to the point where there's really nothing you can say.
No.
Just nothing you can say. And then I read her papers and I don't understand what she's talking about. So I used to proofread her paper. I don't know what she's talking about. And I know she does, and she's well respected in her field and the whole 9 yards. But she's a lot smarter than me. So she explains stuff to me. I just kind of listen and we move
Yes,
on.
ma'am.
And we move on. And my oldest, we have talks about law, but like my father and I, every generation think, number one, they smarter than the one before. Because after I became a lawyer after a while, you know, I just knew I knew more than my father. I mean, it was just clear to me. Anybody could see that. He don't know. Wow, man. And when the OJ trial was on, my father called me a neophyte. It's the only time in my life I can remember he calling me a derogatory name because I was egging him on because I was for the defense. For what? Don't ask me why. I'm gonna say OJ did it, okay? But
You probably just want to start
but
with
he got away with it. It's okay.
he's
A
just messing with
lot
his
of people,
Right,
lot
just
of
fucking
people, you know, get away with stuff of different hues. I mean, it's not like this is the first time something like this is happening in court of law. So it's just maybe the first time it happened to somebody of color, but this happens all the time. We got a little money. But he and I would, you know, I was one of the first televised crimes. And my father, I told you, he's a government man. He's a U.S. attorney, deputy attorney. He would tell you his finest days as a lawyer was when he was a prosecutor for federal government. And I told you, February of 1958, Ebony Magazine did an article about my father. Me and my brother at 3 and 2 years old are in that magazine. I still have it on PDF.
Yeah, some of that.
1958, me and my brother. And you know how the Ebony used to do. All the scenes, his mother and his brothers and sisters over around the table, and my mother kissing me and my brother, because my sisters weren't here then, in the bed, and then, you know, it was this, it was the whole Ebony tree.
the whole movie.
The whole thing. I can't remember when I first saw it, but my mother had, the thing is dog-eared now, but what happened, my brother, before he passed, he was able to secure it on a PDF somewhere, so we have the article
Oh, that's dope.
now. But you know, that kind of stuff. Like I said, that's kind of stuff my father was doing. So he was doing that. There weren't any other black people doing this. He was all doing kind of the first. So you live with that, and like I tell people, I can't explain to you what being John Jr. is to John Sr. unless you actually were me. So you can't really explain. And you know, there's no harm in that. Just unless you were similarly situated. Tell you who I did. Billy Murphy, you all know. Well, Billy's father was a judge too. Billy and I knew each other, not real well, but we knew each other. But Billy was also an artist. He was a drummer, and he and I would often talk about this whole business, being the son of a judge and the expectations people had. One of the reasons I didn't go to law school for the longest time was because everybody expected me to go to law school. Whole time I was a commissioner. Oh, when you going to law school? When you? I want to be an actor. I don't want to be a lawyer. But there are these expectations, and Billy understood that because he's Billy Murphy Jr. to Billy Murphy Sr. And I'm John Jr. to John Sr.
I never knew that.
We understand that. We understand what that's all about.
I never knew that.
So we would have
Yeah.
discussions about that, you know. And Billy obviously had a very storied career. He's an incredible attorney.
But I always thought that was one and the same.
And he's
Because they
brilliant.
used to talk about Billy Murphy. There was one and the same. I did not think that his pops.
Well, I was a commissioner. His father was still on the bench.
Yeah.
Judge Murphy's a great guy. They lived in Cherry Hill. Lived on this hill in Cherry Hill.
Mm-hmm.
He was a great guy. He was what you would call your liberal judge. You know, he had a lot of us like that. You know, I ain't trying to mess with everybody coming to the district court. Okay. Let's be honest, you don't have to mess with everybody. Some judges think you do, but you don't have to. And so okay, lost my train of thought on that again. I'm sorry about that. But worked a lot with Senior Murphy. He's a pleasant guy to talk to, and he was generally liberal unless a domestic assault was involved.
Mm-hmm.
Judge Murphy, he ain't having that. Domestic assault, beating girl, nah, he wasn't having that. Just about anything else, he give you, you know, he let you ride. Not that, but you know, and that's how it was. Judge Bundy, the older black judges, they were on the bench. They were, you know, they're really great people, and they were very kind to us. And you know, they allowed me to come and talk to them about stuff. Particularly, I was in law school 3 years while I was a commissioner. A lot of judges, white judges too, were very accommodating, talking to me about stuff. Let me bend their ear, you know, ask them questions about stuff. So, I've been working with the district court for 30-some years.
So out of 30-something years being a judge.
No, I've been judged about 20, but I worked for the court. I was a court commissioner for 10 years. I worked for the district court.
Okay, so being a judge about 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any trials or any situations that stuck with you?
You ain't got that much time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff sticks with you for a lot of different reasons.
A lot of cases that...
Funny. Now, remember, district court is a social work court. I use that term loosely, but circuit court's going to deal with your murderers, your drug dealers, your robbers, your basic violent, you know, and we did not deal with that. We did not deal with that. We, you know, assault was the most violent. So I always consider district court like social work. You're trying to work with people. That's why we have a lot of problem solving courts in the district court. I presided over drug treatment court for 3 years, one of the most worthwhile things I ever did on the bench. But in mental health court, homeless court, veterans court, they have all these problem solving courts. So you can get that done in the district court, and that's what I like about it. You have the ability to touch people's lives a little bit easier than if you're in the circuit.
Okay.
It don't always work, but you know, if I got a drug addict in drug court, I can work to try to get you straight. It may not work, but we're gonna try.
Right.
As opposed to, well, let's just send you to jail now. But, you know, that's the alternative. I used to tell people sending you to jail. I used to tell defendants this, and they thought I was crazy. I said, sending you to jail. I said, you know, oh no, I would put it like this. You know, I've never sent anybody to jail before, and they would look at me like, you crazy, man, you the judge. I said, no, well, you sending you to jail. I just wait for you to tell me that that's all I got left. So I don't send nobody. You send you to jail by showing me how you behave and how you act. And sometimes you gotta go to jail. I'm not making that call. So, and I think maybe it's a little simplistic, but it's just like that. You know, I'm gonna listen to everything as a judge, try to make a decision. And you know, the state may want to do something here, the defense will do something here. They're never gonna be on board for the most part. So I always felt like I was that vessel in the middle and try to come up with something that was like fair to everybody. But sometimes, like I had the worst case I had, and the most time I gave a guy was a horrible domestic assault. This guy beat this woman unconscious, turned her eyeballs red, and he said something. It was a plea deal, and I agreed to give him 7 years, suspend 4, put him on probation, and you know, all the things you'd have to do for that, you know, get the treatment and all that. And in allocution, he basically looked up at me and said, "I think people are taking this all out of context or all out of," and I'm like, what? I've seen the picture of the woman with her eyes red, she on the ambulance, you know, beat his senseless. What? You, what? We're blowing this out, blowing it out of proportion. That's what he said.
Blowing it out of proportion.
He said, I think everybody's just blowing this out of proportion. I've just seen the picture of this lady, y'all. Nah, brother, this wasn't. So I said, well, I'm at district court. I hadn't bound myself. I said, well, I'm going to give you 10 years. I said, I'm going to suspend all before. After the day, I ain't going to send you to jail no longer than the deal, but I'm going to give you 10. I'm putting you on probation for 3, and I actually said this to him. I said, and when you violate, I'm giving you the rest of it. I didn't say an if, because that's what you mostly tell me if you mess up. I said, when you did. Well, when occurred about 3 or 4 years later, this boy went to jail, served my 4 years, got out, and beat another woman into unconsciousness.
Wow.
Almost immediately.
Wow.
So that VOP hearing was real short.
He landed right back in your court.
Yeah, you have to VOP. You
That's
stay with the
right.
judge.
Yeah, probation.
That's what
Pull
I
him
told
up.
him. I'll see you again. It's over.
What did I tell you the last
I
time we
did.
spoke? Right.
I said to him, I was hot. I didn't even look. I said, do you remember what I told you? I didn't have a lot of words for him. Do you remember what I told you the last time? I said, I told you I was giving you all the rest of the sentences. Whatever he had left was 6 years, I think. That's it. You had it. And then you had the funny cases. Like,
I was just about to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Funny cases.
all kinds of funny stuff, because you can have funny stuff in district court because it's just people, you know. It's just people being people, and everybody don't live like I live. You know, a lot of people are scrapping. They ain't got nothing. You know, they maybe got one pair of clothes they can come on with. They maybe don't think as clearly as I do. But for reasons that are unbeknownst to me, I am often called ma'am in court, as in yes ma'am, no ma'am.
Damn.
Yeah, and it's happened too many times to just.
So,
My personal theory is I think a lot of the brothers, particularly I see, Big Mama's the authority figure in their life. They ain't have a father in their life, and it's always yes, ma'am. Yeah, and I think it's a rote reaction. Yes, ma'am. Yes, and I always crack up and said, I said this happens all the time. I said, but I'm a bald-headed, bearded man. I never thought I looked much like a woman, and usually like so. We're in court one day, and a African American woman is unrepresented. And I'm trying to, you need to get a lawyer about this. There's an African American prosecutor, the woman. And at one point, the woman, I was saying, you understand what I just told you, Jewish rights? Yes, ma'am. And then she catches herself, and now she's real embarrassed. And she, I said, don't worry. I said, look, it happens all the time. And you give the spiel, bald head thing. And I don't know what it is, but don't worry about it. And she said, okay, thank you. He said, honestly, Judge, I think you're handsome. And so the whole courtroom cracks up. And I look at the woman, I go, oh, you real good. You real good. And the state don't miss a beat. And she says, Judge, for the record, the state thinks you handsome too. And nobody was any good. And it happened just like that. I think you handsome, or thank you, we laugh. I think you handsome too. You good. I think you handsome too.
Everybody
And
showed
we're
off.
all. And, it was like a light district court moment. And nobody's fighting. She gonna get a postponement. Go get a lawyer. We'll come back and be serious about this another time. I've had relatives of mine appear in front of me. That's awkward. Told you. Families are families, baby.
Yeah.
Families are families.
Yeah.
I've had, let me see the jail work say, nah, I'm related to him. Just keep him in the back. We'll postpone it.
Mm-hmm.
I've had one set of relatives come in and the state said there might be some identity theft, and I mouth to them, is it her sister who I know would do this case? And she just goes, I said, I know there's the other cousin. This other cousin once, it was on TV News, this is a long time ago, somebody had run a car into a house. Yeah, like a car into a house.
like they parked it in the living room.
Yeah, pretty much. They may not have gotten through, but the cousin house. And lo and behold, I look up, and it's my cousin they interview. And she's the one, okay? Listen, I'm not calling no names. I love all my cousins. But she's the one. She's the one that was using the sisters and everything for. So that night, I get a call from another cousin, her aunt. Well, it's my Uncle Vernon's car, and she didn't have no business in it. So now, he's jammed because the insurance thing, but they loaned the car for a day. She never bought, So you see my relatives in court. Sometimes your friends show up. There's a lady, my daughter reminded me the other day, there's a lady that grew up, she's like a mother to me, man. She shows up in a traffic court, speeding ticket one day. I didn't know what to do. This is a lady I know. Grown up, played with the kids. Oh, yes, man. You're funny, you don't even want to talk to them. So I like the district court. You know, who knows if I could ever go on the circuit court? I never really had an interest in it. I kind of like the social work nature of what I was doing. So.
Nice.
Because it was more diverse. You see.
Yeah, it was. It's just like I
Wasn't that serious?
couldn't imagine. You know, like somebody in a murder trial that might get convicted. I mean, what do you do with that? But if I got somebody that's stealing on account of he's a little down in luck and he got a little substance problem, I can work with that. Okay, we can maybe straighten out. Maybe not. I'm not promising everything. I promise you if it don't work out, we always got to jail. And that was always my thing. I can always send you to jail. I don't have to send you to jail now. We can try a couple of things. You know, I'm not quick on the trigger on the violation, but when it's time, it's time.
There's been times that I've gone to court and people would say the craziest things to a judge. And I would just be sitting there tearing like.
I know. So, oh no.
And it's like I don't want to get in trouble, right? Because I don't want the judge to be like, officer, and I'll just get up and walk out. But it's the stuff that people say.
I think it has to, whatever it is. But I've heard, and then you gotta think about threatening with contempt and stuff that nobody wants to do. And in my experience, it's always the 80-some-year-old dude. Okay, old time, please, man. I understand you come with me. You can't just keep me. Please sit down. You begging in parking court. See, that's where this will come up. Parking court or regular. That's where all this craziness happened. People were hot. Parking court. People were just mad at the city of Baltimore. They didn't like where the signs were. I couldn't see the sign. There ain't no place to park. It ain't got nothing to do with me. So I used to tell them up front, I ain't the city. I'm just here calling balls and strikes. We'll work this out. Right. And I would do certain things, and everybody knew nobody's going to get killed that day, and you find a way to get through the docket where everybody, you tamp it down a little bit because everybody's hot and understandably, but it ain't got nothing to do with me.
You start affecting them pockets, they get real bad.
Well, that's what it is. And seeing parking, I was never one primarily because I'll admit this, I was a horrible parking violator in my youth. I mean, I could take a $12 parking ticket and parlay it into $100 and some and have to stand in the line. Back in the day, y'all don't know nothing about this. All driver tags expired on the same day, March 31st. So wasn't none of this staggered every no. So if you mess up like I would do, I'm in a line for 2 or 3 hours downtown at the Walman building. I'm telling you, lines outside would happen every March. Paying a ticket and they give you things you paid, and now you got to go stand in a 2 or 3 hour line in the NBA because everybody's there. Nothing was online. This is y'all don't know nothing about them days. this was before technology. Wow. Everything was just written. You just now I do everything online with the NBA now. Everything's online. But back then, and I was horrible. So this is what happened. People get in there. Half the time they're in there because they got a $50 ticket and $1,000 in penalty fees. So we get rid of the penalty fees. And I don't know. It's just somebody got to do it, but it's just it's not when you think about it. I'd much rather be working with my substance abusers and trying to get them straight than fighting with the little old European lady who just don't want to take not guilty because the cop's not here. It's not guilty. I said, you don't need to tell me nothing. And then you threaten her with contempt. You threaten her with contempt.
How about like dress code? Anything ever stuck out to you? Like anything funny?
Oh yeah, large-breasted women with no bras on.
Oh.
You see all this. Okay, here's the thing about being a judge. However many people in the courtroom, they are intently watching you. They see everything. That's how judges get in trouble. That's how, because they say dumb shiggity on the bench. And there's all these people out there that watching and listening to it. Me, on the other hand, I'm kind of focused on who I'm dealing with at the time, which is people that just, I don't know what's going on out there. That's why the bailiff's out there. It could be a fight going on out there. Oftentimes there are. Somebody, we've had instances. I had a couple of my judgy friends. Dudes started masturbating in the back of the courtroom. Yeah, what? You want to talk about whack stuff? Them? Yeah. I've had colleagues have women pull their body parts out on the stand to show you this way I got bit. So that stuff will happen in the district court. That stuff will happen. It was entertaining sometimes, but you're not. The purpose is not to entertain. Sometimes people come in, oh, you were very entertaining today, Judge. And I would never know how to take that. I always tried to keep it light if I could. I mean, that's just my personality. I'm just not a hard ass. I'm not one's gonna be yelling and screaming and all that. I mean, I don't suffer fools lightly, and I know what's right, what's wrong. But I'm gonna try to keep it light because I know everybody's a bit nervous. So if we can keep it light, let's keep it light. I was very entertaining, and didn't mean to be. Another one. Do you know how many people that you tell them raise your right hand, they raise your left hand?
Because they're nervous?
I don't know.
Gotta be.
And my general response would be your other right hand, please. So y'all been watching the trial from Minnesota?
No.
Y'all been watching? Okay, I'm on it like daily.
Is it good? Like,
I don't know if you can call the death of a man at the hands of a police officer good, but
no, not that.
Not in that
just,
matter.
just like as far as like, is the defense?
Defense
smart?
has not presented his defense. Defense, in my opinion, this is just my opinion because we haven't seen the defense yet. The defense doesn't have much leeway. The defense really is left to the causation. The state has presented with, and they just keep refining it and refining. The state started out with emotional testimony from week. Every bystander, everybody took a video camera. They've showed the video of this man being knelt on. It's incredible. 4 of the early witnesses broke down and cried on the stand talking about it. People blaming themselves for his death. I could have done more. The kid that was inside that took the counterfeit bill. If I just let the counterfeit bill slide, police would have, So it's very emotional. It's very emotional. It is horrible what happened to this man. But as a lawyer, my friend over there can tell you that we were texting about it, and I kept saying, well, I think so, but I ain't on the jury. And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, it don't make no difference what I think about it. I said, I'm not the trier of fact. I'm not the one deciding the case. What makes a difference is what them 12 people are thinking about. And I have no idea what they're thinking about. And that's the scary part of the trial. If it was up to me, yeah. Go ahead and convict me. But I think that the state's doing as good as he can. I think the defense doing as good as he can. The state's they're refuting everything that the defense keeps coming up. Like the defense is going to want to tell you that he died of an overdose or a heart attack. That the experts on the day pretty much laid that to rest. Now, he died because his body was deprived of oxygen. We talk about it in a very medical way. Basically, just because I was pending everything eventually. At one point, he's a pulmonary expert. He was looking at the video and you saw Floyd, his eyelid move, and then he just stopped. He said he was living then. He said, and that is when the life went out of George Floyd. Understand, unobjected. The paramedics have said, well, what did you think when you got there? He said, in layman's term, I thought he was dead. They never revived him. They got video of his life, the last hour and a half of his life, every second. You've seen it in the trial. George Floyd. In the store, out at the car, when the police came on him with the guns. That's when he freaked, in my opinion, from looking at him. He was high. There's no question about that. No question about that. But when the police pulled the gun on him, he started freaking, and it went downhill. So what it ended up being. So I'm on it. The state's got me going right now, but I'm gonna wait and see what the defense presents. So, and then closing arguments. But yeah, I guess because of my profession and I'm retired and ain't doing nothing else. I've been me and my 91-year-old mother. God, did you hear that? And I brought that up because the second witness that testified was this. I believe the woman was very high on the witness stand. It was a white woman. The girl was all jacked up. She kept falling asleep. She couldn't remember nothing. Shit, this is the second witness. I'm going, what is this they doing? I don't know. I can't remember. Here's what happened. She took a video. Did you take a video? Did we show you the video? Is that what happened? Video comes in. Does the video, I know you can't remember anything, but is the video, is that what you were seeing today? Yeah, they put the video in. This is a video trial. The video started changing trials anyway when I was on the bench. Because that's about the best evidence you can get is a video. Tape. Yeah, I don't need you to tell me what happened, or you to tell me what happened, you to tell me what I can look and see what happened. You can put your spin on it, but I can see what happened. So with the advent of the cell phone cameras, I mean, you're seeing that stuff now, and that stuff can be dispositive, up or down. You did it, you didn't do it. So this is a unique trial in that it is all video. They've got street video cams across the street. 4 of the officers' body-worn cameras. cameras have all been in evidence. 4 bystanders standing there, including the teenager who went viral. It's a very clear shot of the whole thing. The stores have video cameras across the street. You see everything that happens from the time he's in the store till he passes the counterfeit bill. And there's no question about that. He did. He passed the counterfeit bill. He went outside. The store people went out twice to try to get him to come back inside to resolve it informally. He didn't. To the day, I don't know why him and his boys stayed there. They literally stayed there for close to half an hour before the police came. And they've been told twice that the people inside wanted to talk to him. But I'd have been, maybe that's me from Baltimore. I'd be gone. Not have still been sitting out in front of this place. So, it's look forward for the defense, but right now it looks like the state's in a pretty strong position. In the video, it's hard to watch the video. So anyway, but that's what I've been doing most days. I've learned to tape it and then go back and find the stuff I want to see.
All right.
Nice.
Even tried to watch the Orioles a little bit, and they lost today.
So like 5-1.
No, they start off 3-0, and I think they've lost. They're getting close to 500. But they're my boys. I grew up. My father's thing. He was a big, he's a sports fan. And that's another thing about them old brothers back in the day. They didn't just go to school and be lawyers. These dudes were athletes. My father was a world-class swimmer and diver, man. We got all kinds of cups and trophies. And him, like I said, he was a water safety instructor. He swam for Howard University.
Wow.
We got pics of that. He played tennis. These dudes were just completely well-rounded. You ever hear of a brother named Rap Wheatley? Y'all ain't know nothing. He was a Morgan athlete back in the day. He was like my grandma. He lived across the alley from us. And there's nothing. Dude, he never had more. He always had more than enough time for me and my brother. We wanted to throw the ball. He would come out and throw the ball with it. And come to find out later, he was one of the greatest athletes in the state of Maryland back in his day at Morgan. These brothers did everything.
Wow.
They were multi-talented. And here's the guy, just Mr. Wheatley. You want to throw the ball? He would leave his baseball mitt for. He had a first baseman went to the light. And he let me take it and play in Little League. He said, it's out on the back. Just bring it back when you come. Man, I spent a whole season playing Little League baseball with his glove.
Wow.
Okay, so that don't happen anymore either. I guess, up to back, there ain't a whole lot of men and a whole lot of young dudes alive anymore. I mean, they're there, but not like, we had it everywhere.
Right.
People, we're fortunate. We knew a lot of people that had both parents in the house, for example.
So all in all, over 20 years, you had a blast. Sounds like it did.
That's one way of looking at it. I enjoyed it. Somebody asked me that today. I do. I didn't. I can honestly say I enjoyed what I did. Not every single moment, or I'm in the day and I'm in park court all day long, and I'm on by my last nerve coming about 3 o'clock. That wasn't all that good. We saw some sad things, but for the most part, I enjoyed. I'm a people person, so. Because I worked for the district court for so long as a commissioner and as a judge, a lot of the people I knew when I was a court commissioner were still working there when I was a judge. So you just had that. We went from John and Bill to now, I know it's awkward, you got to call me judge, but we boys, so we were partners. I never I don't care a whole lot about titles.
Awesome.
As long as you send me the right check.
There you go. That's what I'm
Look at
talking
that
about.
age right there, baby.
Yeah, that's all. What? Say that again.
I don't care what you call me. Just send the right check. But but I did it. I feel fortunate and blessed that the life I've been able to live so far has been fruitful and positive, and I hope I've made a positive impact on somebody's life.
I'm sure you did.
Absolutely.
You laid the foundation.
But I go back to when did I become history? But I still wonder about that. It's just experiences, though. This is one man's experience in America.
We appreciate that.
One man.
Thank you for coming in.
Appreciate being here. You don't know this does more for me than it ever could do for you.
Wow.
I like talking. That's number one.
So let's do it again.
Absolutely, I'm down. But I like talking about what we're talking about. Sometimes we forget about where things came from.
Absolutely.
It's needed.
And that's another reason why this podcast was created.
Okay.
We're all about bridging the gap, and your voice needs to be heard just like everybody else.
All right.
There's gonna be so many people that are gonna listen to this. Be like, yo, that's his father on that courthouse building.
That was people would come up to me and say, "Is this building named after you?" And I say, "I'm a smart ass by nature."
Right.
And I'm telling people, I said, "No, generally they name buildings after dead people, and I'm not dead."
Right.
So stuff like that. I had an attorney once tell me her client wouldn't take a plea one day. I was there. Because I don't understand it, but she said, what he said was, since the building was apparently named after me, he couldn't be comfortable with me being fair or something.
How about that?
And those are the Christmas party. She's telling me this at a Christmas party. And I'm like, that's the kind of stuff. I'm like, really? I just don't, it doesn't make any sense to me.
I just wanted to thank you because I'm in Mitchell Courthouse all the time and I did not know the little history nugget you gave us about the Mitchell, studying where
Yeah, that's his. So the Clarence
idea.
Mitchell, that's his wife, was Juanita Jackson Mitchell.
See,
Her
that's
mother was
insane.
Lily Carroll Jackson. You ever heard of her? She was the main lady in the civil rights movement. That was Juanita Mitchell's mama. And if you drive down Druid Hill Avenue heading downtown, there's a wall you're gonna see with a mural on it. Lily Jackson Carroll is on that wall. Thurgood Marshall is on that wall. Who else? About 4 or 5 brothers because they all grew up down in this area.
That's
My father. They all grew up around down Druid Hill Avenue. Thurgood Marshall grew up on Druid Hill Avenue. The Mitchells were on Druid Hill Avenue. So yeah, and they have this mural there that has all these
That is
people.
insane.
So there's quite a legacy of black folks. Small community, but they've been there, and just what we gonna do with it.
Right.
That's the trick.
With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it's episode 70. I thank the judge coming on and taking
Thank you
this
for
time.
having me.
No, thank you for coming on, sir. We really appreciate it. It means everything.
Okay.
Just coming out. We need to hear it. The world needs to hear it. And let's continue this thing. Dre, what you got?
Peace and love.
Triple C.
Yo, just keep on keeping on.
That's it. All right, everybody. Judge, would you like to give any shout-outs before we go?
They're gonna put me on the spot like that. I'm gonna
Just
shout
a
out
little
to
token or something.
token or something. All right, to my wife
All day.
and my children, because I'm sure she'll probably look at it at some point. So hopefully I didn't embarrass myself. To my daughters,
Of course not.
I'm a girl dad. Did y'all know
Me
that?
too.
Okay, there we go. I
Me
got
too.
a girl dad. So
I got 3 of them.
we didn't talk about that. Maybe the next time we talk about
Absolutely.
being the only man in that situation.
How about that?
But hey, I love them all. So hey, I'm glad, and I hope that I didn't embarrass y'all too.
Did you think? Did you think?
Because they know how I can get.
Right.
Thank you.
I think my 2 daughters could say the same about me.
Right.
We still on. Because people used to ask. I don't know if you still record,
Mhm.
but they used to have
Yes.
my kids used to go to court with me a lot. They were fascinated when I first on the bed. They go sit there and stuff, and people say, "Oh man, your girls, man, this is something. Your father's the judge." I said, "Please." I said, "I'm the same stupid MF that I've always been in their life. I wasn't always a judge, but I always been their daddy."
Absolutely.
No, that judge would say thing me growing up. "Oh, your father?" "Yeah, and he's my father. He didn't do yelling at me and me do stuff." You don't process when you're the child of. You don't process what
Right.
they do. You just don't. And so it's funny. People will ask that.
Nice.
Nah, it's just like you and your daughters. Same thing. All right.
What do you think about this song right here, Nina Simone, about Baltimore? Classic, isn't it?
I like most music.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
All
Because
right.
Anybody
from my
next?
days at Gilman and stuff, I'm a straight up rocker too. I'm a black hippie,
Okay.
or I was anyway. Anymore. And did you ever see the picture? Remember the time for the Commission Education Committee? They had us send in pictures, and I sent in a baby picture and a picture of me in college. I had this huge fro, straw hat on, jewelry hanging all off my neck, and a cigarette hanging out the side. That was me in the mid-70s.
Nothing wrong with that.
And then Mother Nature started playing that cruel trick with my hair. So there went the fro.
I'm a victim.
There went the fro. And this is where
So good.
this is where we've gone.
Bald and beautiful.
getting closer and closer to a shave. I still can't get there. I just keep cutting it close.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
talk about shaving techniques after this.
So,
All right, my peoples.
all right.
That's it. Episode 70. We love you. Stay safe. Enjoy your weekend. We'll talk to you guys soon.